Hello and welcome to How to Sell to Humans with Timothy Ball, a show about the art and science of selling. I'm a working sales and marketing manager in the UK, and I want to talk about what it means to work in sales today, rather than maybe what worked 20, 30 years ago, while also looking at those things that are timeless and selling to other humans. Excuse my gap in between videos. In my day job, I had a very busy end of Q4 and start of 2018, including winning a couple of great pieces of business with some very prestigious new customers. My goal now is for this channel to get back to adding regular videos. Today we're going to talk about the basics of how to start a sales call. The reason I'm doing this is that in my day job, I head up the UK office of a great Swedish technology company. And alongside selling to an increasing number of UK customers, I also buy certain services as well, and so have a number of suppliers. This means that as well as being a seller, I'm also a buyer, and I'm shocked at how poorly some sellers set up their sales calls with me. To give some context, what I'm talking about here is what's called an introduction call, also called somewhat called a discovery call. That is once you've made initial contact with a prospect and they've agreed to take a call with you, then you set up a call that will typically take somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes for the initial call, in which case the sort of role of it will be understanding the needs of your prospect, see if your products or services will be a good fit, and then if you agree together, you'd set next steps accordingly. My day job is very busy, juggling lots of calls, customer relationships and more. So if you want to sell something to me, then you need to make it very clear what you offer, understand what I need, and then convince me that it's worth taking time to the next step as a way to help me accomplish what I need or want. A big part of this always comes in the first minute, even the first 30 seconds of the call. Attention spans are short, and there are always alternatives to what you offer. So the start of the call is arguably, now not always, not fully, but the start of the call is arguably even more important than the close. To give an example of what to avoid, I'll talk about one call I took a few days ago from a company offering outsourcing services that I had some initial interest in, but I wasn't massively convinced at the start of the call. Before the call, they'd reached out to me and I'd agreed to take a call accepting a calendar invite. The invite itself didn't include an agenda, but this is something I was expecting to kind of see in the call itself. Anyway, coming to take the call itself, I had a conference line to call into that they'd given me, and I was sent an email from the salesperson letting me know he was on the line waiting for me. So far, it seemed okay. I dialed into the conference line, said hello, and then the salesperson launched into a whole stream of questions. However, I had no idea what this person's role was. Turned out later on that he was in fact quite senior in this company, but he also didn't take the time to set what the agenda was for the call, or even really help me understand what was unique about this provider. So it was just it was a really chaotic start. It's almost like panic, just run, charge. The salesperson, who I'll call Dave, although that's not his name, interrogated me about a number of things, but I was never convinced the conversation was valuable. The call was scheduled for about 30 minutes, but Dave ran way over that time without checking if I had time or not. For all he knew, I could have had another much more important meeting following up that I was thinking about, and instead of his company. Anyway, the call limped to the end, and Dave did suggest some next steps, but by that point I'd lost interest. He hadn't convinced me. He hadn't made me think, okay, this is really valuable. I need to go for this. He followed up by email shortly, which is always good. Follow-up's always great, and I might talk about that in another video. But I politely turned him down. I am a salesman myself, so I always try and be sympathetic, but I'm not planning to take things further. Looking back on the call, where did Dave go wrong? From my perspective, Dave failed at the very start by not setting out a clear agenda, checking times, or setting up proper introductions. Let's take all of those three things separately, as each are important. Firstly, setting out a clear agenda is one of the most important things you need to do in setting out a call and then beginning it on the right foot. What I've learned to do is to send this as part of the calendar invite. Typically, for an introduction or discovery call, I've got a very simple structure, such as starting out with introductions, then talking about needs, then give a bit of a background on what we offer, before closing with agreeing next steps as appropriate. On the call itself, after some pleasantries, I'll then talk through the agenda. Maybe mention I've said it before, but don't necessarily expect them to have read it. I'll then check they're really happy with the agenda, and then ask if there's anything they would like to add or change. I do all this to check that our assumptions are lined up, and also to make sure that my goals are clear for the call. I've got some wonderful friends and family I could happily spend hours chatting with, but on a sales call you need to be precise on your goals to show your prospect that you are respectful of their time and attention. Speaking of which, secondly, you need to do a time check. I typically do this by saying something like, hello, we've set 30 minutes for this call. Does that time still work for you? The reason I do this are many, including that I'm respectful of their time, and also making sure that we get to the key points as agreed. You must get to the point because you are highly likely to not be their most important call of that day. And in fact, when Dave called me, and I had several other meetings that I was sort of thinking about running to back and forth, I was going to listen to his time during that call, but afterwards I was on to the next thing. I had more work to do. We were in process of winning another piece of business, so a lot of things on my mind. So do the time check. Thirdly, you need to have space to do at least high-level introductions at the beginning. Typically, when we start off a call, I'll introduce myself and say, hello, I'm Timothy, I'm calling from this company. Start of an introduction call. I'll then explain a little bit about what my goals are on the call, and then all I'll do is I'll hand over to them. So I've kind of just said sort of very briefly, what I'll ask them to do is just to sort of let me know a little bit about, tell me if they can introduce themselves, explain a little bit of their role in their introduction. Even if I've done my research and I found out, okay, this person's the head of this department, I never want to necessarily assume things. I'd also ask them what it is they're looking to achieve on today's call. If they've taken my call, then it's highly likely there's something they want out of it. So that's always a good time to kind of check on, okay, what are their priorities? What are they looking for? So when it comes into the main part of the call, I can make sure I'm hitting those things they said are a priority to them. And this is something I do all the time. I'll kick off a discovery call and sort of say, okay, so what are your priorities? And then throughout that call, I then check on it. So, Bob, is this the right thing for you? Susan, is that the right thing for you? Does this fit into what you're looking for? This then forms the kind of structure. Getting those introductions right, getting the person I'm speaking to talk a little bit, that gives me a bit of time to think. And also, it's just all about helping me get that call off on the right foot. By doing all these three things at the start of the call, that is checking the agenda, doing your time check, and those simple introductions, they don't need to be much more complicated than tell me a bit about yourself, your role, and what you want to achieve on today's call, like what are your priorities. Doing all of those, I show respect for the prospect, make it clear what I want as well, and ensure that the call is going to be as valuable as possible for both sides, all within the first few minutes. If you fail to do those, then your prospects are likely to not be very impressed and lose interest very quickly. However, if you follow these three simple steps at the start, then it should give you a strong foundation for the rest of the call and in ensuring those crucial next steps. Having that structure has helped me hugely, has also helped me hugely with ensuring that I'm speaking with the right person, and speaking of the right opportunities. As it may be in 5 minutes, we could well find out that we are completely misaligned. For one example, I had a call I did as a salesman a couple of years ago with an incoming lead. They'd gone on our website, they'd downloaded loads of our documents, and they expressed an interest in kind of finding out more about our system. So I followed up with the lady in question, and we agreed to kind of introduction discovery call. Within those first kind of few minutes, I sort of found out, I asked her, what is it you're looking for? And when she kind of explained what she was looking for, I suddenly realised, okay, she's completely, we're completely misaligned in what she was looking for and what we offered. And I did inquire a little bit to see if she did need what we were offering, but what I basically found out was that, we were completely different things. She was looking for a completely different sort of solution. So what I did was, I very respectfully said, thank you very much for your time. I respect your time. I wish her well. Said we don't really offer what you're looking for, but if in the future you do need what we offer, then let's talk in the future. So all in all, I was able to close off that call probably in about 10 minutes. So in doing so, because I'd gone through and done those introductions and set those priorities and agendas at the start, I was able to qualify that lead out and focus on other opportunities. As always, I want to talk about practical steps. I would encourage you to tell me how you best start your sales calls and if these 3 steps have been helpful to you. I've already had some positive feedback from previous videos, like how my thoughts on the words if and then being 2 of the most important words, if not the most important words in sales, and how they've helped others with their own businesses and negotiations. And I would love to hear more stories. For now, thank you for watching How to Sell to Humans with Timothy Bull. If you want to see more, then you should make sure you subscribe and check the notifications button. For now, good day and good selling.